The mashed potatoes hadn't even made it halfway around the table when my wife decided to casually detonate my dignity. There was no shouting, no name-calling, no warning, just the gentle clink of her wine glass, the sparkle in her eye. And then, like she was reading aloud a mildly amusing anecdote, she said, "Well, if Delbert had any ambition, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere." My fork didn't even make it to my mouth. The table fell silent like someone had just announced a death in the family. My sister-in-law gasped. My nephew, bless his oblivious teenage soul, chuckled until my brother elbowed him. My mom froze mid-scoop, her serving spoon trembling over the green beans. And me? I sat there with gravy cooling on my plate, wondering if I'd actually heard it or just had a stroke. Celine didn't even look at me. She just took another sip of wine, crossed her legs, and smiled sweetly at my mother like she'd just complimented the curtains. I should have said something. Anything. Instead, I blinked, swallowed, tried to remember how to breathe. I'd hosted this dinner, by the way. I'd cleaned the house top to bottom, repainted the guest bathroom, took time off work, bought the wine she liked, folded napkins into those stupid little triangles because she said presentation matters. And now here she was, casually revealing her betrayal with the same tone you'd use to critique a salad. The worst part? Nobody moved. Nobody asked, "What do you mean?" Nobody said, "That's not okay." Nobody defended me. They just sat there in awkward silence. Even my father looked down at his plate like maybe he'd find a distraction hiding under the roast. I stood up. Slowly. My knees knocked the table. No one looked at me. I walked out the front door. No yelling. No theatrics. I just left. Down the driveway. Into my car. Key in the ignition. Hands shaking. I didn't even grab my coat. I drove until my phone died. I ignored the calls. I ignored her calls. Yes, she tried. Not to apologize. No. The first voicemail just said, "Seriously? That's how you're going to act?" The second said, "You embarrassed me in front of your family." That night, I slept in the back of my truck in a Walmart parking lot. It was December. I used the floor mats as a blanket. I stared up at the ceiling and thought, what just happened to my life? But this story didn't start at that dinner. It didn't even start with the affair. It started months before that, with an email I wasn't supposed to see, a dinner reservation that didn't include me, and a friend request from a woman I'd never met who knew way too much about my marriage. This was just the night it all collapsed in public. And I'll tell you exactly how it unfolded. But first, you need to know what came next. After sleeping in the back of my truck that night, I drove around aimlessly for hours. I ended up at a 24-hour diner on the edge of town, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and waitresses who call you hon, even when you look like a wreck. I ordered coffee and pancakes I couldn't eat, sat in silence, and tried to replay everything from the night before, except it wasn't replaying. It was stuck on repeat. Her words echoed like a broken record. If Delbert had any ambition, maybe I wouldn't have looked elsewhere. I couldn't even remember what triggered it. We were talking about my sister-in-law's new job, I think. Someone asked me about the shop, and I gave my usual answer. Things were fine. Not exploding with growth, but steady, reliable. And somehow that was enough for Celine to throw a grenade right there at the dinner table. But what really kept me from breathing that night, what really burned, was knowing deep down that it wasn't spontaneous. That comment, it was loaded. Practiced. It was meant to sting. And worse, it wasn't even her first warning shot. About 3 weeks before that dinner, I'd noticed Celine had changed the password on our shared laptop. We used to be open about all that stuff, emails, accounts, everything. But lately, she'd started taking calls in the bathroom, turning her phone screen away from me, sleeping with it under her pillow like a teenager hiding something from her parents. I tried brushing it off, told myself I was being paranoid, told myself that just because I was boring didn't mean she was cheating. Then one afternoon, I needed to print a parts order invoice and used her work tablet since mine was dead. It auto-logged into her email. I wasn't snooping, honestly. But when the inbox loaded, the top message wasn't business-related. It was from a guy named Braden. Subject line, "Thanks for last night." I needed that. "You're incredible." No attachments. Just that. I stared at it for so long my vision went blurry. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. The words were enough. I took a screenshot. I sent it to myself. Then I logged out, cleared the history, and spent the rest of the day pretending like I hadn't just had my ribs kicked in from the inside. I didn't confront her. I wish I had. But I was scared of the answer. I convinced myself it could have been innocent. A joke. A misunderstanding. But deep down, I already knew what was happening. I was just too much of a coward to confirm it. Or maybe I was still holding out hope she'd come clean on her own. Instead, she went nuclear at the family dinner, right in front of my mother. And here's the part one haven't told anyone yet. I know who Braden is. He's not some stranger from the internet. He's not an old flame from college. He's not even someone she met on an app. He's her coworker. Someone she'd introduced me to. Someone who once shook my hand in our kitchen while I was grilling burgers, telling me how lucky I was to have a woman like her. Yeah, that Braden. And now, I was sitting in a greasy booth with my face burning and my hands trembling, realizing that the people who had smiled at our wedding, who toasted to our forever, were probably the same ones covering for her now. Because they all knew. Her sister, her friends, maybe even her boss. And not one of them had said a word. I paid for my untouched pancakes and stepped back into the cold. I had no plan, no change of clothes, and no idea where I was headed. But I wasn't going back home. Not yet. Because if Celine wanted to destroy my life in 11 words, I was going to respond with silence. The kind that screams. And when I returned, I wouldn't be the same man she left behind. By the time I made it back into town, my hands had gone numb from gripping the wheel too tightly. I parked 3 blocks away from our house and just sat there, watching my front door like it was the entrance to a crime scene. I was too tired to be angry, too ashamed to feel betrayed. All I could think about was how easily she'd said it, like I was some failed project she'd grown bored of. If Delbert had any ambition. As if the home I built, the business I poured my back into, the life I offered her, none of it had value because I didn't wear tailored suits or fly out for conferences. I finally walked up to the house late that night. No lights on. No apology note. Not even a missed call. When I stepped inside, everything smelled like her perfume and peppermint candles. I went straight to the guest room and shut the door. I didn't unpack, didn't change, didn't shower. I just sat on the edge of the bed, opened my phone, and stared at that screenshot again. I tapped it once. Hit forward. I typed in her boss's email address, the one she had casually mentioned a dozen times while bragging about work politics. No subject line. No explanation. Just the image of Braden's email, the one that started it all. I didn't expect anything to happen. I didn't even know why I did it. Maybe I wanted to ruin something of hers. Maybe I wanted to break the silence she'd wrapped around me like plastic. Or maybe I wanted someone else, anyone, to finally know what she was doing behind her glittering smile. She didn't come home that night. In fact, she didn't come back until the following evening, breezing through the door with a tote bag, a story about crashing at Camille's, her co-worker and best friend, and a smug little smirk that made my blood run cold. She tossed her coat on the couch and asked, like nothing had happened, "You gonna give me the silent treatment forever?" I just looked at her and said, "Check your email." Her face froze. Not dramatically, just enough that I saw it. The slight shift, the crack in her composure. "What?" "Braden," I said flatly. "He sends sweet follow-ups. You should remind him not to put things in writing." She didn't scream. She didn't cry. She went pale. And then she laughed. A short, cruel chuckle. "Oh, that's what this is about. Delbert, are you serious? I thought you had thicker skin than that. It was just flirting." I stood up. "So you admit it." "I admit nothing happened that would hold up in court," she said, walking toward the kitchen like we were done. "Besides, if you want to go airing our dirty laundry, maybe I'll tell your clients how you've been forgetting jobs and giving discounts out of guilt. You think your little glass shop can survive a smear campaign?" And that's when I realized I hadn't married a person, I'd married a corporate brand. A cold-blooded, PR-obsessed, image-controlling snake who saw life as a ladder, and me as one of its rungs. She poured herself a glass of water like she hadn't just threatened to destroy my career. I said, "You slept with him, didn't you?" She turned, that same smirk returning. "What matters is this. You made a move without thinking. And now, we both lose." The next morning, HR at her company put her on leave, pending investigation. Apparently, fraternizing with direct co-workers wasn't just frowned upon. It was a violation of her contract. She came home at noon, threw her bag at the wall, and screamed at me. Not about what she did. Not about what she said at dinner. She screamed about how I embarrassed her. And that's when something in me snapped. Not like a breakdown. Not like tears. Just a quiet, calm click, like something had finally slid into place. She'd never been afraid of hurting me. because she never thought I'd fight back. But this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about taking my name back. And she had no idea what I was planning next. 2 days after I sent that email, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. Normally, I ignore those. But something told me to pick it up. I was in the shop, under a client's car, trying to replace a cracked windshield while my brain kept replaying that smug little speech Celine gave me in the kitchen. The ringtone echoed inside the garage like a siren. I wiped my hands, grabbed my phone, and answered. Delbert. The voice was female, cautious, almost nervous. Yeah, who's this? It's Camille. That stopped me cold. Camille, her best friend, her co-worker, the one she claimed she crashed with the night after the dinner. I leaned against the car, suddenly more awake than I'd been in days. She continued quickly, like she was afraid she'd lose her nerve. Look, I don't want to get involved. I probably shouldn't even be calling you. But I didn't know what she was telling you, and after everything that happened at work. Camille, what are you talking about? She hesitated, then said, Celine's not telling the whole truth. About Braden. About the dinner. About any of it. I could hear her pacing. I imagined her in some office hallway, whispering into her phone, checking over her shoulder. She didn't stay with me that night. She told me to cover for her if you asked. I didn't know why at the time. I didn't know she'd already. I didn't know she'd go this far. My throat went dry. Go how far? She was planning to leave you. She's been planning it for months. The promotion she was chasing? She only got it because she was sleeping with Braden, who's on the executive team. She told me it was strategic. Strategic, Delbert. Like your marriage was just a stepping stone. I didn't speak. I couldn't. Camille must have taken my silence as disbelief because she rushed to clarify. I can forward you messages. Screenshots. I have texts. I never agreed with what she was doing, but I didn't know how to stop it either. I felt like you should know. I leaned against the car harder, the weight of the truth pressing on my spine. Camille paused again, and when she spoke, her voice cracked. She said she was going to destroy you before you could ruin her image. Said she'd make it look like you were unstable, that you were emotionally manipulative. She had screenshots ready to twist, Delbert, half conversations, cropped messages. She was building a case against you while smiling in your face. And just like that, everything made sense. The recent gaslighting. The way she'd accuse me of being too sensitive every time I tried to express frustration. The sudden shift in tone when we were around people. The cold, surgical cruelty at the dinner table. It was all part of the same plan. She didn't want to break up. She wanted to win. Camille ended the call with a quiet, almost guilty, I'm sorry. Then she hung up. I stood in silence for a long time, staring at the cracked windshield I hadn't finished, breathing in the sharp scent of motor oil and betrayal. She wasn't just cheating. She was engineering my collapse. But now I had the evidence, the witness, the motive, and most importantly, I had time. That night, I didn't confront her. I didn't rage. I didn't throw accusations or demand answers. I cooked dinner. I asked about her day. I even poured her wine. Because if Celine wanted to play games, I was going to be the last person at the table. She just didn't know it yet. I don't know how I pulled it off. Maybe it was adrenaline. Maybe I'd just been humiliated enough times that pretending to be fine had become second nature. But that night, as I made spaghetti and poured her favorite Pinot, I didn't flinch. I didn't even blink. Celine walked in wearing that fake, I'm too busy to care, look she always put on when she wanted to seem important. Her coat hit the floor, her heels clicked across the kitchen, and she barely glanced at me before grabbing a fork and stabbing into the pot. You cooked? She said, like it was some kind of surprise I was still functioning. I smiled. Felt like doing something nice. You've had a rough week. She raised an eyebrow but didn't push. She was too self-satisfied to be suspicious. She thought I crumbled, that her words at the family dinner had destroyed whatever dignity I had left. She thought I was broken, licking my wounds, desperate to keep her. That's how she operated. She pushed until you broke, then called you the emotional one. She didn't know I had Camille's messages. She didn't know I'd started screen recording everything. She didn't know I'd backed up her text threads to the cloud. Yes, our cloud. The one she forgot was synced through the old iPad she'd given me last year. The next day, I called my bank and quietly separated our accounts. I moved my business funds, my savings, even the emergency money I'd kept tucked away just in case. I filed for a business rebrand under a new name she didn't recognize. Then I contacted a lawyer, one who specialized in defamation defense. I told him everything. The cropped screenshots she was preparing, the campaign she'd quietly started to frame me as unstable. His response: "Don't confront her. Just gather everything. When it hits, let it hit hard and clean." So I did. I kept doing laundry, cleaning the dishes, sleeping in the same bed. I kissed her forehead when she left for work, and I never, ever looked angry, because I knew that would tip her off. I knew she'd escalate if she thought I was preparing to fight. So I waited, smiling, quiet, patient, while she carried on, texting Braden from the bathroom like I didn't know. But the closer I got to pulling the trigger, the harder it got to keep the mask on. Because I saw things, little things, that made it clear just how far gone she really was. Like when she got a call and smiled so wide I hadn't seen teeth like that in months, then turned to me and said it was a work update. Or when I caught her spraying my cologne on a pillow and leaving it in the guest room. Later I'd find out she was using that room when she brought him over during lunch breaks. Yeah, she brought him into my house, slept next to me at night, and still dared to look me in the eyes like she was the one who'd been wronged. I started keeping a journal, not for court, just for my own sanity. I wrote down every word, every moment she twisted, every sentence she weaponized. Because even when you know the truth, gaslighting makes you question your own memory. The turning point came when she told her sister I'd been acting strange, that she was concerned about my mental health. She left her phone out, unlocked. I saw the texts. "He's not talking much. I think he's slipping." She even joked that she might need to record him if he starts yelling. I hadn't raised my voice in months. And that's when I realized she wasn't just cheating. She wasn't just planning to leave. She was laying the groundwork to ruin me, to make sure that if she got caught, I'd take the fall. The guy with the broken business, the unstable husband, the jealous wreck. She didn't want a divorce. She wanted to erase me. So I made a quiet promise. She'd get everything she was working toward, just not in the way she expected. A week later, I invited her to dinner. Not just the two of us. No, I made it a celebration. Told her I wanted to make up for the awkward family dinner from before. Something light, I said, no drama this time. I could see the curiosity in her eyes, the way she tilted her head and squinted like she was trying to figure out what game I was playing. But she smiled. She always smiled when she thought she had control. I booked a private table at a wine bar downtown. Classy enough for her standards. I wore the shirt she once said made me look almost successful. She wore red, of course, her signature shade when she wanted to command attention. She walked into that room like she was stepping onto a stage. And I had already built the audience. My brother Kip and his wife were there. Amelia and her fiancé were there too. Even my parents showed up, a little confused, but I'd asked them to trust me. I said I had something important to clear up. And they came, bless them, not knowing they were about to witness a demolition. Celine didn't expect the crowd. She paused in the doorway when she saw them, then turned to me and whispered, "What is this?" "A chance to finish the last dinner without interruptions," I said, pulling her chair out. She gave that slow blink, the one she used when trying to decide if something was a threat or an opportunity. Then she plastered on her smile and sat. Small talk filled the first 20 minutes. We ate. We laughed, mostly at Kip's dumb stories. I didn't rush it. I let her relax. I let her think it was safe. Then I cleared my throat and said, "Actually, I'd love to address something that got said last time we were all together. Something that's been eating at me." She froze, knife in hand, halfway to her steak. My mom looked nervous. Amelia put her drink down. Celine tried to laugh it off. "Delbert, come on. Not again." I turned to her. Calm, measured. "You said I lacked ambition. That maybe if I had some, you wouldn't have looked elsewhere." Silence. She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. I turned to the table instead. "I want you all to know what elsewhere meant. Braden, her coworker, the one she told me was just a mentor. The one she said was helping her get that promotion." Her face flushed red. "This is ridiculous." But I pulled out my phone. I had already screen shared it to the lounge's digital display with the manager's permission. The email from Braden popped up first. Then the messages Camille had sent me. Screenshots of texts, dates, plans, lunch breaks. Her entire secret relationship laid bare in crisp high resolution. You could hear forks drop. Celine turned to me slowly, venom in her voice. "You're humiliating yourself." But I didn't flinch. "No, I'm undoing what you spent months trying to orchestrate." Then came the final blow. Camille had agreed to record a video statement. Nothing dramatic. Just a calm, clear explanation of how Celine had manipulated her into covering for the affair, how she planned to frame me, how she said she'd make me look unstable to win sympathy. I played it. Celine stood up halfway through. "I'm leaving," I said, by all means. But before she reached the door, Amelia spoke. Quietly. "You planned all this, just to break him and walk away like a victim?" Celine didn't respond. She just left. The door closed. My mom reached across the table and grabbed my hand. No one said anything for a while, but they all knew now. They saw it for themselves, and I didn't need to explain anything else. She didn't contact me for 3 days. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails. Nothing, just silence. At first, I thought maybe she was embarrassed. Maybe, for once, she was processing shame. But on the 4th morning, I found out what she was really doing. She had gone on offense. I got a call from a mutual friend. Well, more her friend than mine. A guy named Terry who worked in PR. He sounded awkward, like he didn't know where to start. "Hey, Del, I thought you should know. Celine's telling people you ambushed her. That you manipulated everyone into believing she was cheating. She said you edited screenshots. That the video from Camille was coerced. She's making noise." There it was. She wasn't done. She was pivoting the narrative, painting herself as the misunderstood wife, targeted by a bitter husband with trust issues. I knew she had influence in her circle. She had curated it for years. Friends who owed her favors. Co-workers too afraid to speak up. She moved in social circles like a politician, never getting her hands dirty directly, but always steering the storm. I stayed calm on the phone, but my stomach twisted. Not because I believed anyone would take her side, but because I knew how fast a rumor travels when it sounds dramatic enough. And in this world, people love a villain. They love a breakdown, a bitter divorce, a jealous husband lashing out. But this wasn't just drama. This was war. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't post anything. I didn't defend myself online. Instead, I finished what I'd already started. My lawyer finalized the divorce papers. Everything was clean, no contest. Thanks to Camille's statements, and a little help from another coworker who'd finally come forward, Celine had no leverage. Her company was already quietly letting her go to avoid PR fallout. The promotion she weaponized her body to chase? Gone. Her reputation in the industry? Cracked. Maybe not ruined, but definitely bruised in all the places that mattered. I had even put the house on the market. Quietly, discreetly. I stayed with Kip while the realtors staged it. It wasn't just about moving. It was about wiping every surface she'd ever poisoned. Then came the moment I didn't expect. She showed up, unannounced. I was back at the house grabbing a few tools from the garage when I heard the front door creak open. I walked out of the laundry room and saw her standing in the entryway, sunglasses still on, arms crossed, like nothing had happened. Like she belonged. "I'm not here to fight," she said before I could speak. "I just wanted to talk." I didn't answer. I let the silence speak for me. She looked around the house, eyes scanning the clean counters, the half-empty walls, the quietness. "You're really going through with it?" "You made that choice for both of us," I said. She frowned, like I was the unreasonable one. "You made this public, Delbert. You didn't have to do that." "No," I said. "I had to show people the truth before you twisted it into your story." For the first time in a long while, she didn't have a comeback. She stepped further in, slower now, as if unsure she still had permission to exist here. "I don't even know who you are anymore," she muttered. I looked her straight in the eye. "That's because I finally stopped letting you tell me who I was." She didn't cry. That would have required something real. But her hands trembled, just enough to notice. She picked up a framed photo from the hallway, our old anniversary picture, and stared at it like it belonged to someone else. Then she said it. None of this was supposed to end like this. I walked to the door and held it open. "It didn't end, Celine. It began." She left without another word. But I wasn't done. Not yet. There was still one more piece left to move. And I knew exactly how to finish this, not with revenge, but with something far more powerful. Closure. 2 months passed. The house sold. The paperwork was finalized. Her name, once stamped next to mine on every legal document, was now a fading memory tucked into a manila folder in my lawyer's office. I left the town we'd lived in for 6 years and opened a second location for my auto glass business in a different county, closer to the interstate, bigger foot traffic, And, most importantly, no shadows of her left behind. People always talk about healing like it's some dramatic montage, gym workouts, glowing makeovers, spontaneous travel. That wasn't me. I didn't find peace in a boxing class or on some beach with a stranger. I found it in the quiet moments. Replacing glass and silence. Drinking my morning coffee without side eyes and passive-aggressive sighs. Sleeping alone and finally resting. Celine tried to reach out once more. She sent a message, short, cold, clinical. We should talk. Just once. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. You don't reason with someone who thought of you as a placeholder. You don't reopen a door you finally had the strength to close. Camille, surprisingly, kept in touch. We weren't close, but she checked in now and then, not with gossip, but with genuine concern. Turns out, a few others from Celine's company had also distanced themselves from her. Not because I asked them to, not because they took sides, but because the truth has a funny way of lingering even after the smoke clears. And me? Well, one afternoon, after wrapping up a job for a client whose windshield had been shattered by a fallen tree limb, I walked out to the front lot and found a woman sitting on the bench outside my new shop. She looked lost, flustered. She had tears in her eyes and a child in her lap. Her car had broken down an hour from home, and every tow company was booked. She didn't even realize she'd wandered into an auto glass business. She just needed somewhere to sit. So I offered her water, let her use the phone, helped her get a ride. And before she left, she said, "You've got kind eyes. The world needs more people like you." I didn't tell her my story. Didn't need to. Because in that moment, I realized I was no longer living in the wreckage of what Celine had done to me. I was living in something I built myself, with my own hands, my own patience, and my own damn backbone. I wasn't her plan B anymore. I was my own plan A. And that, right there, was the ending she never saw coming.